All right, we are back for another fun episode of DTNsights. So glad you clicked and watched us today. This is episode 2, and we are excited to have both a standout employee at DTN and one of our great customers. I am super excited to introduce Hadden Hippsley, the president of Lambda Productions, and Jordan Van Auken, one of our meteorologists and risk communicators. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing great.
Awesome. Well, our episode today is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about the concept of risk communicator, which is a unique thing to DTN where we essentially place a meteorologist with our customers to learn and to communicate and talk about weather risk in a way that is very detailed to the customer. So we look forward to chatting that. Hadden, you have such an illustrious career in the event space and event production. As I was going through your background and trying to pick out how I would intro you is almost hard. You've done so many amazing things. So I'll kind of start with this question. If you're at a social event or a party and says, Hadden, what are the cool things you've done in your career? How do you typically answer that?
I try to avoid it because it just usually means I'm old. Been doing it a long time, and we produce events. We produce the production side of all kinds of events, whether music tours, music festivals, or even corporate shows. We are responsible for interfacing everything from a technical perspective, stage lighting, sound, video, and particular artist needs to make the event a success. And things that work against us, which works well into today's podcast, is most of our events are outdoors. And when you go outdoors, weather is always the big challenge that we can't control. As much as some people say certain artists are hard to control, they're easy compared to when it comes to the weather and everything we face on daily challenges. So it's my job and my company's job to try to put all of those elements together, and part of our team is to work with the festival team and local authorities to make sure that everybody who purchased a ticket arrives, has fun, and most importantly, goes home safely to their families.
Absolutely. Jordan, for those that are unfamiliar with risk communicator and what your job is, how would you describe that to people that want to learn more about how the role of the meteorologist has evolved over time?
So a DTN weather risk communicator, they're experienced meteorologists who integrate years of hands-on weather expertise with our deep industry knowledge to deliver our accurate intelligence that supports confident and actionable decisions. So the risk communicator starts well before your event starts. So we bring support at every stage. So we'll start with the risk assessment so we can create a weather risk summary, assist with your trigger chart, and help all the industries through their weather pain points, essentially. I can even help with drills. I've done multiple hurricane drills. I've even done some weather drills with some emergency managements. And then during our weather events, we'll actively monitor weather conditions using our prior communications as guidelines. So we do proactive communication instead of reactive communication to better make proactive decisions. And then after the event, post-event evaluations, such as post-storm reports or post-event assessments, can be provided, which include our detailed analysis of the event and our data and our decision timelines. And this can be valuable to our regulators, our restoration organizations, and even insurance.
Awesome. So Hadden, one of the things that I've admired about you is you've been an active participant in trying to make sort of the outdoor event space more safe in general, including weather, but of all things safety, including being active with the Event Safety Alliance, and really working with DTN as we've kind of grown our service and adapted to the changing landscape. So I'm curious, throughout your career, how have you seen safety sort of become more important, and especially through the lens of weather?
Every day, and I say it in almost every meeting, it's amazing how far we've come in such a short time. What used to be an unknown, and everybody went to the morning newscast for their weather and planned their event around that on a local basis, has changed. I'm fortunate for the artists and groups that I've worked with throughout my entire career. We've always paid close attention to weather. We've always employed private meteorological services to all of our events. And I guess where I failed is I assumed what we were doing was the norm. And back in 2011, when the Sugar Land stage collapse occurred in Indianapolis, it was a wake-up call to everybody. Personally, I was shocked that more people don't do what we've always done. And I think the good takeaway from it, it opened the eyes to the industry. It was the reason the ESA was created, is to share knowledge of experienced people with people starting to create events and try to do things the right way. It was very well embraced. Insurance companies loved it because obviously it would probably help prevent some claims. And from the private weather service, it took a lot of burden off of other resources. But to have something tailored and pinpointed specifically to each event, sharing the concerns and unique features with every single event, whether it's the type of crowd or mobility issues with demographics or scenery or whatever is involved in the show, heavy pyro, drone shows, whatever that weather impacts, which is really everything. To be able to share that with a meteorologist and hone a custom plan for that event is fabulous. And 10 years ago didn't really exist to that degree. And now what's amazing is maybe I'm spoiled, but I know very few events that even enter into an event without a private weather service in their back pocket as a tool. So it's great how far it's come over the years, and it's now the norm.
Yeah, and we really appreciate your advocacy for that, because in our world we call that weather maturity. The use of, there's further and further integrations of weather information into any action plan, and when you can kind of set up that action plan and then those events occur and you sort of transition into taking the action, that's a really, really important step. Jordan, as a meteorologist, how have you seen that change from your perspective of how you used to interact with customers years ago even to today in that communication level, especially with Hadden, as you guys have worked so closely with each other over time?
Yeah, so previously, before I was on the risk communicator, we were on shift work. So I was on like a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. kind of deal. So I would be interacting with customers during that time. I would call out if we were to issue like a thunderstorm warning, or if one of their thresholds were to be triggered. However, they're going to be talking to multiple meteorologists throughout the day. They're not going to have one single person that understands exactly what they're going through, what their pain points are, what their thresholds are every single time. And if somebody were to call in, like one of our customers were to call in, it might take a couple minutes because maybe we weren't looking directly at their spot. With the DTN risk communicator service, I'm looking at their spot 24/7. So pretty much when I'm not asleep, I'm on, like with Hadden, I wake up. The first thing I look at is the radar in the area to make sure I don't need to talk about any immediate threats. And then I get started on their daily forecast. And then as the event goes on, I'm communicating with them throughout the day. Be like, hey, I see a cell about 2.5 hours away, keeping an eye on it. Right now, not too much of a threat, not seeing any lightning, but it's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, as our next lightning threat is about 2.5 hours away.
Yeah, absolutely. Hadden, I'm curious, have you seen a shift in the sort of stop, go, pause? In the past, at least from my perspective, there was always like, we either are going to have the event or not have the event. How have you seen sort of the flexibility of being able to make decisions within an event day or an event weekend adjust over time as weather information has gotten better and as you've interacted with Jordan?
It's amazing. And interacting with Jordan, she knows not only what's going on at every single stage, and every stage has different production needs, different sizes, different restraints, but she's also aware of the show schedule. My opinion is it's fantastic how far we've come in that I get to work with Jordan, who's literally focused on every aspect of our event, from load in to load out. Doesn't even matter if there's an audience on site or not. She's watching everything as we change stuff over. But it's one aspect that goes into it. We use heat mapping, we use all kinds of other sources. So I can compare with Jordan at any time where we are in the loading process. Once we open doors, how many people are on site, how much time before a headliner comes on, where the people are on the site. A lot of festival sites are rather large. A lot of racetracks are huge. So to know where your crowd is at any point in time, we're not just adjusting for the event, we're adjusting for specific areas of the event and where the crowds happen to be at that time. And it allows us to plan ahead. There's been times, I can't think of one time when we've canceled an event top to bottom due to weather directly. We've had events canceled for the weekend because of causes of weather, whether it's just too much mud, too much rain, too much flooding. We did a fish event in the Finger Lakes area to where, the site was okay, but because of so much rain, it impacted the city water supply, and that water supply was tainted. So there's, those type of events. But our goal on most festivals, we'll pause the show, we'll evacuate, we'll reload, and we'll continue the show, if not the same day as that evacuation, at least adjust for the schedules and artists so that the remaining days can go as best as we possibly can. And that's where working with, in my selfish case, Jordan, she's aware of all of those situations and help us navigate those waters, and not just with myself and the production team, but the core tier 1 team in the incident command center to try to salvage as much as we possibly can for the show, both for the artists and the fans that are coming to see it.
Do you feel
Another
like
point,
oh,
yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
another point to add to that is we can tell you the weather, days before. So one of those situations in Delaware, we knew that there is going to be strong to severe thunderstorms in the evening, which was going to be during their peak show time. And so Hadden and his team made the decision to move their show earlier into the afternoon instead of the evening time, so that way everybody could still come and enjoy the day.
Correct. And that was this fish festival in Monda Green this past summer in Delaware. And it worked great.
Hadden, have you seen that the decisions where weather impacts actually branch out from maybe in the past where it was like, look, I'm worried about like the stage and the band and the fans. And now you hit on something important, which is, look, the mud in the parking lot, or I need water for a really hot event. How have you seen those sort of branching out of decisions that you have to make and be part of over time, and your ability to make smarter ones as time has gone on?
I think it's almost twofold. So when I forget the second fold, remind me. But I think one is working with local government agencies, whether it's municipalities or counties or cities. There was an education process to have them become more familiar with private services and DTN and what they can offer. Probably our biggest challenge is, if you're in a municipality, they will say, well, we're making the call because we have somebody from the U.S. Weather Service in our back pocket. And we'll try to connect those dots as opposed to pointing blame and saying our meteorologist is better than your meteorologist, because it's simply not the case. Their job is to focus on counties, and oftentimes those counties spill into multiple states, and they cannot be focused on it. Where our service, especially with DTN, is, we point out to them, they are focused on literally this site, and they don't go beyond the boundaries of the site or where we push people out into the public area. And a phone call often, and Jordan will do it all the time for us, is to connect with a U.S. meteorologist person. Once they have a conversation and that person can go back to whatever city or county officials that they are in communication with, they now have the confidence. And one, it's a team effort, and everybody's vote is critically important. But two, it almost takes pressure off of them. And most of the time, and Jordan can speak to it better than myself, they realize that a private weather service has a lot more tools in their toolbox that even the U.S. Weather Service has, based on what they have available to watch. So again, it's a team effort. It's not he or she pointing which way we're going. It's everybody joint. And I think that confidence goes just miles for it. And then the second part of it is kind of on a local aspect. It just helps us prepare everything, all day long and make our decisions and share what concerns us so we can better plan ahead and know how to adjust the schedules as we go.
I enjoy actually having the other meteorologists on there because they're used to working in that area. They know the topography, they know the nuances of that area. And maybe, yeah, I do forecasts for a lot of different areas all the time, but I'm never focused on one area like these National Weather Service people are. However, it is good to bounce ideas off of since they are focused on more than just that one site. So I'm able to trust them, they're able to trust me, and we're able to come to a consensus on what communication we're going to be sending off to our customers.
And we'll even share a lot of things of what we see out our window. And then I think that's equally as important with Jordan. And to her point, we've been working for many years together, so she knows how I react and don't react, and pluses and minuses, a little bit of vice versa. But to also have Jordan continually at the same events for us, that's Hang Out or Now Sand in My Boots in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and Electric Forest up in Michigan, and Lost Lands out in Ohio. She gains that local knowledge that we've sometimes had to educate her with. The more times we're consistent with our meteorologists and relationships, it just helps everybody do a better job.
You answered my next question, which is how you guys have learned off of each other. I sort of love your relationship, right? Because I know you guys have trust in each other. You've been sort of through the battles and have the scars and the learnings. But what is that feedback loop like where you learn something from one event that you can take then to the next event?
I think some part of it is Hadden's also looking at the radar. He's watching the weather almost as much as I am. And there was one point, one of our events, he was like, "It looks like it's weakening," and I went, "No, that's a false alarm. Just because it's weakening doesn't mean it's not going to affect you. It's going to bulldoze right over your location. Still going to have lightning. The pouring location is what's going to go directly over you. Don't focus on the weakening. Focus on the impacts."
And there's weird, I'm sure Jordan can, I never can explain it. There's weird uniqueness, almost idiosyncratic type of things that occurs at each one of our festival site that are a little more challenging to explain, at least especially for a layman like myself. Whether it's a land formation, whether it's a slight elevation change, coming across at Electric Forest, for example, most of the weather comes across Lake Michigan. We're on the western side of the Michigan Peninsula, so it's hard to say what's going to occur as it leaves the Milwaukee area and comes across the lake towards us. But then there's one little spit of land. We call it the Sampo split because of Michael Sandliner always made fun of it. It actually does change what the weather does as it approaches this tiny little spit of land for no reason. And watching it over the years, it's something we consider and we watch. Maybe Jordan's got better reasons on why, but it's definitely something that local knowledge and experience pays off hugely for how we call things, because obviously everything's being called at the last minute.
Yeah, another part of that is like with Mobile, Alabama, you have sea breezes, and those sea breezes can help pretty much tear apart the thunderstorms that are coming from land to the Mobile, Alabama site. Now, if they're coming from offshore to inland, then maybe a land breeze could help tear that apart, but it's more likely the sea breeze is going to help tear apart that thunderstorm. It wasn't even that long ago. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, we had a really strong thunderstorm approaching the festival, and the National Weather Service had put out a thunderstorm warning for it, a severe thunderstorm warning. And I told Hadden, it was like, "Hey, so there's a possibility that this does make it to your event. However, the sea breeze is about 20 miles away. If this reaches 20 miles and it starts to dissipate, I don't believe that you're going to see really any impacts from this, maybe a light drizzle at the most." And what happened at 20 miles away? It started dissipating. And by the time that it reached their festival grounds, it wasn't even a sprinkle.
Right. And it's that kind of information, and it's sharing that information with, to me, everybody in the incident command center, the fire, police, mayors, whatever. We've had whatever frontal boundaries or these places where breezes and winds intersect. We don't, when I teach weather severeness or something and share it with staff, yes, you have a 10-mile radius, you have a 20-mile radius. We set alarms up and change them somewhat daily. And we've kind of condensed, if we know there's a very hard defined boundary at 6 miles, we'll let it thread that needle. But everybody is on board with it. Everybody understands the why, more important than what we're doing. And if that starts to shift north or south at all, everybody's prepared to react. So it's again, it's a team effort. And to be able to see that where maybe 10 years ago, but definitely 5 years ago, it didn't exist. I think it makes some of our jobs a little more stressful. At the same point, it makes a lot of our jobs much more controllable because we are surrounded by so many experts. And instead of trying to educate somebody who is not so trusting in what we're doing, everybody's now a part of the process, and it just makes it a better experience. And I think the end results, most importantly, better decisions being made because of the education.
Yeah. Do you feel like, go ahead, Jordan?
Yeah, so to put along with that, the reason why we change our thresholds every day is because the speed of our storms change. So let's say you need an hour to evacuate. So I'm going to make sure that your hour evacuation line is the line that I'm telling you you need to get moving, you need to go. But of course, we're going to be starting that communication well before it even hits that hour line.
And those thresholds change throughout the event. When we open doors, we may have 2,000 to 3,000 people in an event. We can evacuate those in minutes, where towards the end of the day and your headliners are ramping up, then yeah, you'll have a full, I need every minute of the hour to do it. And again, I couldn't imagine doing an event, and we don't do an event without somebody on site working with us, understanding all the parameters that we face every minute of the day.
Yeah, we describe it at DTN as there's the paradigm of operational shift and decision making is becoming micro decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just go or no go, but it's getting down to literally minute by minute, small decisions that have big impacts down the line. And I would imagine that you've seen the amount of decisions go up, but the ease of making them maybe stay the same. You mentioned it. Yeah, it might get a little more stressful because there's so many of them, but having that integrated thought process and communication tree and an action plan all put together, it makes it easier to make the decision and then take action, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen over time less sort of impact on the events, meaning the oh crap moments of the past? Have you seen that decrease over time?
Oh, absolutely. Better education, better planning, better rehearsing, for good or for bad, more real-time experience, and learning and debriefing from all of them. Yes, and the fact that everybody, it's now becoming part of the norm, where before we were educating people to have weather plans. And it's almost, I was speaking just the other day, we've moved beyond wind and lightning to, now what are the impacts after we pull a trigger on an event? How much time are people going to be evacuated in a safe place? Is there proper ventilation? Is there enough water? Are there enough facilities for the time of the pause between, when the show can start up again? So it's now, a lot of our planning is getting better at what we do once we pull the trigger, and how do we better prepare to reload, and how do we provide a better experience during that window for everybody, for staff, artists, and the public patrons. 5 years ago, I don't think that thought ever, our goal was to get people off stages and off the site safely. And now look at what we're trying to even improve upon once we do succeed at that step. So it's amazing, and it's exciting just to see how much better we'll be 5 years from now.
Yeah, I think a trying to remember what event it was, but there's sort of the story of where a decision and an action led to a new decision and an action, which was, right, I evacuated 20,000 people to a concourse on a hot day. Yeah, they're safe from lightning, but all of a sudden it got really hot when you put all those people up together. Now you have a heat safety concern that you created because you decided correctly on the lightning threat.
100%. And we've had drought issues, and we have air quality issues because of local forest fires. There's so much more that we are getting better at in planning and learning and taking into account for an entire event than just lightning and wind.
Absolutely. All right. We are going to move into our fun last segment called Heat Burst. Here comes 5 quick questions meant to be fun here. So, Hadden, I'll start with you. The craziest weather event you've experienced while working on the road?
Oh, geez. There's a lot of them, but probably craziest would have been in Florida, to where it was hurricane gale force winds approaching. We didn't have the weather heads up that we used to have, and we were seeing follow spots and come off of towers and stages, vinyls getting destroyed, that type of thing. Again, fortunately, site was evacuated and there were no occurrences, so we can smile and reflect upon them now. But there's many. Absolutely many, but that's one that stands out with me.
The raw power of weather is unbelievable. Yes. It is unbelievable. All right, Jordan, your most intense weather event you've covered for your job?
I think it was during, well, we had 2 tropical systems in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time, supporting our offshore oil rigs and our liquefied natural gas customers, as well as our coastal emergency management cities at the same time. I wish I could remember. I think it was Hurricane Maria, as well as I believe it was an L name, but that one dissipated like right as Maria became the Gulf of Mexico threat.
Yeah, I remember that. That was certainly an intense time. Hadden, coolest place you've been able to travel for your job?
Oh man, I've traveled the entire world for the most part. I would probably say the Pacific Rims, the Kuala Lumpurs, that type of area, part of the world still I just love.
Okay, an add-on question of that. What is your must-have food recommendation from your travels?
I have to have dry roasted salted nuts as a nervous habit.
Okay,
Nuts,
there you go.
anything. I don't stop.
I love that. All right. And we'll wrap up with this. Jordan, what's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
I think right now it's reading or painting.
Okay, I like that. Hadden, how about you?
Oh, that's a good question, because there's very little time outside of work. We're lucky enough to own a place on St. Croix, and we go down there and visit and relax. So it's almost the same thing.
That sounded like an invitation, Jordan. Did you hear that?
I like going to concerts, and that's all Hadden does.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, anything but a concert.
Yeah, exactly. Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much, Hadden, Jordan. This has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate your insights. I thank you both for honestly being leaders in how to work together to solve weather risk. It's a really important thing that we're getting better and better at. As you mentioned multiple times, there's kind of this feedback loop, and it's fun to sort of hear the journey of what it used to be to where it is, and we can only go further, which is so much fun. So I appreciate your insights, your time. This has been a lot of fun for me. And just again, thank you for joining DTN Insights.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.